very good. It's working this time.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's working now. Technology. My name is Yugal Parashar, and I'm the editor of the Indian News. Thank you for your time to speak to the Indian News, please. Thank you.
No problems at all.
To begin with, how are you feeling now?
I'm on the mend. It's COVID's a bit of a roller coaster. It goes up and down a little bit, but I'm overall I'm on the mend.
Yeah, that's great. Now, we were a bit disappointed because we wanted to speak to you in person. Anyway, we can still talk to you today. So, Prime Minister, since elections are just a few days away now, how is it going? Yeah, now it's better now. So, Prime Minister, we come to the poll surveys. They are not exactly favoring your party or the government. What do you want to say about it? What's your take?
What we've seen in the most recent polls is that National and ACT are coming back down again after, after hitting a bit of a peak, as New Zealanders become more aware of what a risk a National ACT New Zealand First government would be for New Zealand. People know that National's numbers don't add up, and increasingly now on a daily basis they're seeing what that's going to mean. It's going to mean benefit cuts, it's going to mean cuts to public services, it's going to mean thousands of people out of jobs. And importantly today, I think what they became aware of is that it's going to mean inflation staying higher for longer and therefore interest rates staying higher for longer. So any benefits that New Zealanders would get from the tax cuts National are proposing, they're now seeing that they would quickly be taken away by all of the other costs that they would face. And so as a result of that, I think that explains why there's such a huge undecided vote at the moment. It's the reason why we're not seeing a big early vote like we have in previous elections, because I think New Zealanders are far more undecided in this election than they've been in many recent ones. So I think a lot of Kiwis are going to wait until election day and they'll make up their minds on election day. So that means the campaign's really important.
Prime Minister, that prompts me to ask you the poll survey numbers, which were published just a couple of days ago by the Herald. And it says there could be, in the worst case scenario, a possibility of a hung parliament. So if the numbers don't add up on either side or they are on the same numbers. So is your government ready for any contingency plan for a re-election or something?
Certainly, if we have to encounter that, we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. I think the best way of ensuring that we have stable, positive government for New Zealanders is to give your party vote to Labour. Sure. I think a National ACT New Zealand First government would be disastrous for the country. It certainly wouldn't be good for our migrant communities, given New Zealand First's past history of singling out migrant communities for criticism and abuse. Having worked with Winston Peters before, I'm certainly not keen to do that again. I don't think New Zealand First act in the best interests of our migrant communities. And it's one of the reasons why I don't want to work with them.
Now, Prime Minister, since it's election time, there has been a lot of allegations, counter-allegations, mudslinging and whatnot. You think it will go away as the elections end? Or the bitterness is going to last longer?
No, I certainly hope that, once the election season has died down, that New Zealanders will return to being the good, community-focused, harmonious society that we have always.
Interruption from the other end. Still not okay.
I'm back here again. I'm not sure what happened there.
So sorry, the technology again is playing its role. Now, Prime Minister, since I represent the Indian community in New Zealand, it's a strong, as you may be aware, 300,000 strong diaspora of Indian community here. How important are the relations for your government with the world's largest democracy and one of the most strongest economy in the world today?
First of all, I can acknowledge New Zealand's Indian migrant community, who play a really, really important role in New Zealand's overall economy and in our society. I have the opportunity to interact regularly with Indians living in New Zealand, so many of whom were born here. And I want to just say, thank you so much for the contribution that you make to New Zealand. It's incredibly important and incredibly valued. I think the relationship between our two countries is in an improving, I wouldn't say improving, a growing phase where I think there's huge opportunities for us to work more together. I met with Prime Minister Modi earlier in the year. He's invited me to visit India, and I indicated to him at the time that we had an election campaign coming up, but that it would be my intention to do so as soon as possible after the election. And I've indicated that I would do that with relationship is so important, and it's one that we can really expand and grow.
Yeah, Prime Minister, I ask you this question because I've been in this country for a long time, and I find this lack of that trust or the warmth which India shares with Australia, the big brother Australia. For example, the FTA, which has been deliberations going for many, many years, a direct flight between India and New Zealand is still missing. So those are two starting step to begin with. So when do you think that they can see the light of the day?
Well, we recently signed an air services agreement between New Zealand and India, which I think opens the door for more direct flights between our countries. I think that would be great. I'd love to see that happen in the next term. And as Prime Minister, that will certainly be something that I'll be endeavouring to champion. I would love to see, a direct connection between New Zealand and India. And if we can make that happen, I'll do everything I can to support that. I do think that, people focus a lot on whether or not we could get a free trade agreement with India. At the moment, India has indicated that that's not something they're willing to negotiate with New Zealand on, but they also have indicated that there will be areas in the economic space where we can make progress. And so I think one of the reasons for leading a trade delegation to India within the first 100 days of the next government being formed is so that we can identify what those areas that we can work together on are. Unfortunately, New Zealand simply stating we want a free trade agreement with you isn't going to deliver a free trade agreement, but building the relationship will, in time, open up huge new opportunities for New Zealanders.
Do you have any plans to invite the Prime Minister Modi here?
I did indicate to him when I met with him that it's a standing invitation. At any point, if he wants to visit New Zealand, we would absolutely love to host him. He's hasn't indicated at this point that he wants to take that up, but certainly it is a standing invitation.
Sure. Now, Prime Minister, I'm sure your government should be aware there are some fringe elements in this country who are working against the state of India. And when I raised this question, when the Indian Foreign Minister came visiting, and the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Foreign Minister of New Zealand intervened, and she said, yeah, we have the freedom of speech in this country. So I'm not sure how you can have some, those elements working in this country in the name of freedom of speech or freedom of expression.
Freedom of speech is something that's very important to New Zealand, and we'll continue to defend the right of people to express their views, to express their religion, to express their opinions freely, even when we disagree with them, and we'll continue to do that.
Prime Minister, would you allow that freedom to work against the country?
One of the things about free speech is it does mean that you can have your own citizens criticizing their government. In fact, I think that's an integrally important part of living in a free and open democracy. And so that's a value that New Zealand will continue to hold dear, and we'll continue to hold that dear in all of our dealings with other countries around the world as well.
Great. Now, I will not hold you for very long, Prime Minister. One last question before I let you go. What message would you want to give to your prospective voters and the Indian community in particular?
My message to all New Zealanders is that this is a really important election. We've made a lot of progress in the last 6 years. It's been an incredibly challenging time for New Zealanders. And I acknowledge that when the going is tough, it can be natural to think about wanting change. But I think the challenge that New Zealanders have ahead of them is to contemplate what change would actually mean for them. It would mean more children, certainly reducing benefit increases in order to pay for their tax cuts. It would mean government. There is an alternative, which is a government committed to tackling climate change, lifting children out of poverty, tackling the cost of living and bringing inflation and interest rates back down again, turning back to the policies that the National Party proposes would simply repeat the mistakes of the past. If Christopher Lux...
To all my dear viewers, I sincerely regret that technical snag while we were interviewing the Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins. Prime Minister, on this note, I come to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for your time and all the very best for the elections.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. To all